الإله لست للفردوس أعلى ولا.
I wrote my name, I said, Terry, my name is Imran. So on the basis of the law of reciprocity, I can call him Terry. While we admire and applaud the efforts being made, using from within the law that they created to try to punish Israel, and we say continue with your effort, and we applaud you for your effort. But we also have to have a parallel effort, which is a macro effort. And that macro effort is non-systemic, not within the system, but outside of the system. And that is to restore the free and the fair market, which is the Sunnah of Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam. One of the first things we have to do is to restore Sunnah money, restore integrity to money, restore dinar and dirham. And I've suggested to you earlier that you could start doing it right here in Cape Town. If you go to a shopkeeper who is Muslim or who is an observant Jew or Christian, and you buy goods from him, offer to pay to him in gold and silver coins. And if he says, no, I don't want that, I want rands, you can then impress upon him he's committing a sin. And you're going to pay for it on Judgment Day. The man will be shocked. You get a chance to do some dawah. We pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala may bless our efforts, trying to restore the free and fair market. Thank you. The Articles of Agreement of the International Monetary Fund, I told you, prohibits the use of gold as money. Would this government-to-government agreement for the use of gold for swapping balance of payments would violate that prohibition?
I wouldn't think it would. In terms of the IMF, the dollar was convertible into gold at $35 per ounce of gold. And that was the foundation of the IMF system, and other countries pegged their currencies to the dollar. The rand, the pound first at $4 to the pound. The pound was devalued $2.80 to the dollar, $2.80 to the pound. The rand, as half a pound, was $1.40, $1.40 to the rand rather, and so that was how the gold reserves were used. But I see no reason why that cannot, and I think the world realizes it's high time to modify those arrangements. They were negotiated at the end of the Second World War, and it's a very different world today. And the rest of the international community has got to have its say and its involvement in it. We're no longer the colonial society of the 1940s. So I think that it could well be modified.
Okay.
Yes.
One last question, Terry. We are exploring an alternative, a macro alternative that can bypass the banking system. We are of the opinion that the banking system and the larger monetary system were crafted to facilitate the pursuit of a Zionist agenda in Israel, so that Israel might be able to establish its political and economic and monetary dominion over the Arabs and over the world. And this is linked with our eschatology, that the false Messiah will then declare, I am the true Messiah. If we are to locate an alternative that can bypass the banking system, the best person to comment on that would be an ex-banker. How feasible would be a proposal to try to persuade Russia, which is becoming more friendly now to the world of Islam, as it realizes day by day that the Zionist encirclement of Russia is closing in now with weapons, with nuclear missiles all around Russia. And Russia now acquiring some backbone and standing up, that we persuade Russia to recognize gold and silver as legal tender alongside the ruble. And when gold and silver are recognized as legal tender, then while our governments were still in the grip of the IMF and the World Bank and Washington, the Muslim peoples around the world are becoming increasingly convinced that we should return to gold and silver, particularly the poor, so that merchants can travel and can buy and sell directly using a common currency. And this can expand the day when, I don't know how long it will take to get the Chinese on board, but if you get Russia and you get China and you get the Muslim people with the governments not being able to prevent the people, you'll be able to establish a trading bloc in the world which will give us some breathing space that we can buy and sell bypassing the banking system.
I think it depends on the development of BRICS. Brazil, Russia, India, China and South Africa. And it's very early stages. But all of those are countries that traditionally have been very focused on gold. So yes, it needs it needs a lot more thought as to how to restructure the whole international monetary system, and everyone, I think, around the world agrees that the system is broken. And somehow or other it's got to be, and the Americans will obviously resist as long as they can, because we are now on a black gold standard, essentially of Saudi oil. Because as I explained, oil is priced in US dollars. If we can break that. Yes, until 500 years ago, China really dominated the world. And then 500 years ago, a lot of it because of the role of guns and weapons. Then began the European domination of the world. And that's coming to an end. So I think that narrative is about to change quite dramatically. Okay? And that's what makes the 21st century, I think, fascinating time. But I think that narrative is changing. Colonialism, imperialism, with the backing of weapons and war. Okay? And secondly, Naeem, the question of
Before you turn to the second question, may I offer a comment?
Sure.
I think it's a dialogue, so I think we can allow that.
On the contrary, I don't see white dominion or European dominion over the world diminishing. I see the opposite picture, something that they call full spectrum dominance. A civilization hijacked by people who are running recklessly amok, waging war after war after war after war, shamelessly and without any concern for law and for morality. And I think we are moving in the direction now of a worse form of slavery than the one we had before.
I would agree, if I may, that this so-called war on terror launched by Bush, but I don't think it's going to work. I think the pendulum is going to swing. But yes, I agree, this war on terror is absolutely odious, it's horrendous.
I am wrong. I invite my audience to correct me. I am not aware of any so-called Islamic bank anywhere on Allah's earth which recognizes the money which it is using as bogus and fraudulent and haram. And I always remind my audiences that I have done studies. I have done some studies in international monetary economics, so I'm not just talking out of this hat. when I use the word bogus and fraudulent and haram. So I wonder what kind of credentials do Islamic banks have when they will not even lift a little finger in the cause of dinar and dirham. Number two, I'm reliably informed that they are also engaged in fractional reserve banking, but that they are lending money on interest in a deceptive way. The Prophet, Allah's blessings be upon him, allows a credit transaction. That's halal. But there is no evidence, and it's a little bit late in the day now to manufacture evidence, that the shopkeeper was allowed to increase his price because he had to wait for payment. No. Credit price and cash price was always the same. If I have to wait for my money and I'm allowed to increase my price because I'm waiting, I become a money lender. There are two transactions. The first transaction is what I've sold at a profit. And the second transaction is because I'm waiting on my money, I've lent you my money on interest. Because you're going to pay me at something called a markup. Two transactions in one. The second one is haram. When Islamic banks buy and then sell cash, you can sell at whatever price you want. I want to buy a house. I don't have the cash. So I go to the Islamic bank. They say no problem. What's the price of the house? 500,000. Can you buy a house for 500,000 rands?
No.
No, you can't. Okay. What's the price of the house? Okay, it's 1 million rands. No problem. We will buy the house for 1 million rands and we will sell it to you for 3 million rands. Are you familiar with that nonsense? I don't want to hurt the feelings of any Islamic bankers who are present here. No, that's not my intention. I just want to know that I'm factually correct, and if I'm not, kindly correct me. Why would I pay 3 million francs for that which is on sale for 1 million? There's only one honest answer to that. The rest are all bogus. The answer is because it's not a cash transaction. It's a credit transaction. I'm being given time to pay the 3 million rands. The Islamic Bank declares that this is murabaha. It's not. It would be murabaha if it's a cash transaction. But if it's a credit transaction, it is riba, because the credit price is higher than the cash price. So Islamic banks are, number one, not raising even a little finger in the cause of gold and silver, dinar and dirham. Number two, they engage in fractional reserve banking. They are lending more than they have. And number three, they are lending on interest while hiding behind a smoke screen called murabaha. I met with the president of one of South Africa's Islamic banks. I won't mention his name. And we debated the subject for half an hour in a very friendly, civilized way. And at the end of half an hour, he said to me, I accept that this murabaha is a shaky subject. But it's the best we can do for the time being. Maulana, what can we do?